Before we get into it, I just want to say that this video is split up into two halves. So we've got me installing the insulation into the floor of our van, and then the second half is we're looking at different types of insulation, things like what the R factor is, the cost of different ones, and we're just doing like a general breakdown of different types of insulation. So if you want to skip to a section that you want to get to fast, there are some chapters. So yeah, check them out. Hopefully the video is helpful, and with that said, here we go. First of all, I measured the length and the width of the gap that the insulation was going to fit into. Then I measured and marked the insulation. After putting my little markings down, I got a straight edge and connected them together, either with a pen or pencil, or if you want to be super on the mark, you can do it with a small knife like a Stanley blade. Next, I marked the width and brought that into line so it was nice and square. Once you've done this, then it's on to cutting. I cut away from the van so there weren't bits of insulation flying everywhere inside. So here we have the good stuff, which is what we want. On the other side is the rough. When I'm cutting, I made sure I cut on the rough side of the line, so I have maybe an extra mil just so it's a really nice tight fitting piece of insulation. Once cut, it's back to the van to hopefully see if it will fit. And it did absolutely perfectly. So we basically repeated this process over and over again. Some bits did end up being a little bit fat, but that's fine. I'd rather them having to be shaved down than too short. So my dad and I got into the perfect rhythm. I would measure and mark, he would cut, and it worked really well. We got it done super quick. I think the entire van only took us probably about an hour using this method. So we've gone over our insulation, we're all happy with it, it's all in place, which is really good. The next thing to do is go over with tape, for two reasons. Number one is that over time, if the insulation does start to move, it can't go anywhere because it's stuck down. And second of all, this is aluminium tape. And aluminium tape, although be it minute, it will keep heat in a little bit better than duct tape, masking tape, and all that kind of stuff, because it is metal. So here we go. And another thing to mention also is that if you're wanting to run wires or do anything under the floor or go through sections, this is the time to do it, because obviously you're sticking things down and you don't want to be pulling it back up. So if you're doing wiring, put it in now. Before putting the aluminium tape down, we gave everything a good hoover so the tape has a good surface to stick to and it's not getting stuck to all like small bits of microfiber dust, and it won't stick properly. The aim of doing this is to stick half of the tape on the batten and half of the tape over the gap between the insulation and the batten, so that it just stops little bits of airflow and it traps heat in and it doesn't escape as easily. Once we had done all the vertical beams, then we did the horizontal beams. This took about an hour and a half probably to do the whole thing, but yeah, we got it done in the end. Hi everyone, hope you're all well. So, today we're going to be looking at the world of insulation. This is a topic which I wasn't actually going to cover because I didn't know enough about it. And then I discovered no one knows enough about it. So I have definitely got my notes today because it's a big topic and I don't really want to get things wrong. So the first thing I'm going to say is that there's not really a right or wrong answer to which insulation you use, really. All of the insulations that we're going to be talking about have their place. Whether that is in a loft, in a stud wall, in your grandma's greenhouse, keeping the frost off her plants, they've all got their place. It's just finding which one works best for the situation you're in. That's what I found. So for us, on our floor, we've used Kingspan, or an equivalent to Kingspan, which is basically just like the board insulation. We used this because it was free. We got given it, so that's why we're going down that route. Anyway, I put this comment out on a Facebook group I'm on. I basically asked about insulation, and I got loads of comments back saying, ask 5 people about insulation, you'll get 15 different comments back. And it was actually really true. However, the one comment that I got back which was really helpful was this. Basically, this is off someone replying to me. The best video I saw was a US company, van building company, pumping out high-end vans. Here we go, this is the key section. This was their comment. We don't know the exact correct answer, but we follow the best practices and we are happy with the result. So this is a high-end company from the US. That was their reply basically. They don't know the best result, but they basically have what works and they go with it because it works well. But they don't know what the best result is. There could be a better result, but for them that works. So, as I said, all the products have their place. So we just have to kind of find out which product we need for our whatever we're doing. Moisture. Moisture's a huge thing with obviously insulation. If you've got water running down your walls, and I mean like, just dribbling down and just messy, insulation first of all isn't going to stick to it. Whatever insulation it is, you do not want that because it's just not designed to be sucking in water and stuff like that. Small particles that are in the air and kind of stuff like that, fine. But you don't want like water running down your walls. It's just not right. Okay, so we're going to do these in sections. We're going to look at fiberglass, Rockwool, boarding insulation, spray insulation, and expanding foam insulation. So here we go. What is the R factor? So the R factor is basically how we measure the ability to restrict the movement of heat within insulation. So I heard one guy explain it like this. They have a box, they put some insulation in it like so, and then they put a light underneath and they measure how much heat is underneath and how much heat is coming out. So that gives us the indication of how well this product is insulating. So that's your R factor basically. And yeah, depending on the thickness of the insulation is kind of like more so, it's a better R factor for insulating. However, when you go to different insulations, they have different R factors because they're different insulating types. So a foam insulation R type will be different to a Rockwool. So it's kind of weighing up the odds. Fiberglass. Fiberglass is basically made out of sand, it's made out of glass, it's kind of, I don't know how they make it, but it's like that kind of wool textured substance. Fiberglass is cheap, first of all. That's a good reason to go for it. It's really cheap, it's easy to get hold of. There's different colours. The colours mean nothing. It's basically just different manufacturers, whether it's pink, whether it's yellow. It's down to the manufacturer. So when it comes to things like these wall insulations, a lot of people shove them in really, really tight and they kind of pack it in there and they think that's really good. It's not. So it has to have some air between it. So instead of me slamming it in and it's really thin, there's not much air in there, but by just gently pushing it in, you've got a lot of air.
which basically, the way it insulates, let me just look at my notes. If pressed together, there's not much air between the layers. The air between the layers is what makes it insulate well. I don't understand the science of it, but having that gap with air between is really good. So don't push it really hard in. Also with fiberglass, obviously with glass and things like that, it can be really irritating on your skin. I remember when I was a kid, I fell into an attic. I was in the attic and I fell. So I didn't fall up into it. I basically fell into some fiberglass and like my arm, oh man, the glass was just like, oh, it was so itchy. It was just really annoying. So when you're doing things like this, obviously have a look at wearing some gloves or a mask, whatever it is. Next is Rockwool. So Rockwool is fairly similar to like a fiberglass insulation. It's kind of that woolly textured again. However, Rockwool is made out of rock. It's made out of different types of minerals, and it's a lot thicker. It's a lot more dense than fiberglass. It's got a higher melting temperature, so fiberglass will melt. Rockwool is, you'll find it a lot on different fire safety things, so yeah, it's got a higher temperature, so it won't melt as easily, so they'll use it within, for fireproofing more so. Obviously it is a better insulation, or it's a higher R factor than fiberglass, but you pay for it. You pay for it a bit more because it is that little bit higher factor. So the next product that we're looking at is boarding, like insulation boards. There's 3 I've got written down on here. One of them which I don't have anything for, so we're going to leave that one. But the first one is polyiso boarding. Second one is XPS, which I have nothing for. And the third is EPS. So, polyiso boarding. That's basically your Kingspan. So, Kingspan's a massive company. They do this polyiso boarding. It's a really good insulator. This is what we used for our floor. It has a high R factor, so the R factor on this product is 6.5 per inch. It's more eco-friendly, which is a good thing, than the other boards. So XPS and EPS, the polyiso is more eco-friendly, basically. XPS I have nothing for. I tried to understand it but didn't really, so I left it. EPS is like that kind of boarding again, but it's like the polystyrene. So back in the olden days, which aren't that old, when you had like polystyrene cups, that was essentially EPS. So that kind of, yeah, like loads of little ball bearings or like whatever, not ball bearings, but 100 little balls kind of stuck together to make a cup, that kind of thing. It has less R value. It's not as good as polyiso boarding or Kingspan boarding, and it's not biodegradable, so EPS is not good. Basically, that's not me saying it's not good, because as I said, they've all got their place. It's just finding what works best. Spray foam. So I didn't really understand all of this because it wasn't something I was going to be doing in the van, so I didn't really look it up. But there's something called closed cell and also open cell. Closed cell is more expensive than open cell. It's much stronger than open cell. That's basically all I've got. But basically these sprays are, they pre-warm the wall. If it's in a house, they'll pre-warm the wall. They'll have like basically 2 compounds basically come together up a hose, and then when they get to the end of the hose, they mash together these 2 compounds, thus making the insulation spray. So then they can spray it into the wall. That's basically kind of it. As I said, I didn't look much into it. But if the walls are wet with moisture, like I spoke on earlier, if there's like any moisture really on the wall, things like this won't stick at all. They'll just kind of fall off because there's nothing to stick
like get a really good bond to. When it's dry, that's fine, but when it's wet, it just slides straight off. So I'm gonna fast forward because I don't think those ones are overly relevant to a van. But by all means, if you want to check them out, can foam. This you can get from any hardware stores. Basically, you walk in, grab a can, and it's pressurized by air or gas. Yeah, basically, it's very relatively available. It's cheap. However, if you're getting expanding foam, there's a few things to consider. You can overfill a cavity or a van if you're putting it in a van wall. Expanding foam, once you've sprayed it in, obviously you can see it expand, and when you walk away, after a few, however long, couple of hours or so, it will still be expanding very slowly. This can be a problem because if you filled the cavity right up and you're happy with it, and you chuck like ply or whatever you're putting on over the top, that foam is still going to be expanding. So you could end up with a dent in the side of your van. That's if you like put loads in. Yeah, so just be careful with it basically. As I said, it's cheap and it's easy. But one of the big things with the expanding foam obviously is that once you've put it in, if you've got any electrical things or anything that you want to get out, foam is going to be a pain in the ass to get out. And you probably will never get it all out because it just sticks in there. It's like, yeah, if you've gone down that route, great. But from my point of view, it's just going to get stuck and wedged, and like if you ever want to get it back out for whatever reason, if you've got moisture in there and you need it back out, it's just going to be pretty hard to get out. So yeah, I guess so this is kind of mainly to do with the floor, looking at insulating the floor. However, when we come to do our walls and stuff, we'll do another video. Again, hopefully in more detail, and I'll have more information and I'll understand it better. But yeah, so as I was saying, like Rockwool or something like that in your wall, you can pull that back out. So any moisture, any wires, you can just kind of easily deal with. But hey, as I said, this video wasn't to say this is better than this one. It's all got its own place, and it's just down to whatever you want to use, really. So yeah, quite a big topic, which is quite boring. But anyway, we've covered it. Any comments, or if you think that you know better or anything like that, please chuck them down because it's all helpful. If there's any videos that you know of that are really good to watch, write them in the comments and we can all check them out and yeah, try and get our heads around it together, really. Anyway, that's it from me. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.